Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Able Voices podcast. I'm Dr. Rhoda Bernard, founding managing director of the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education and the assistant chair of the Music Education Department at Berklee College of Music. And I am proud to present this podcast featuring disabled artists and arts educators. We are inviting disabled artists to be guest hosts for the Able Voices podcast. Our next guest host and today's guest is Tara Allen. Tara Allen, she, her, identifies as a queer, neurodivergent, and disabled music psychologist, music educator, advocate, and bass clarinetist. She holds a BM in instrumental music education with concentrations in instrumental wind band and bass clarinet from the Crane School of Music and an MA in psychology of music from the University of Sheffield. Her master's thesis, "The Bees Are Too Loud, ADHD'ers Sound Preferences as an Aid Daily Task Completion," focused on how ADHDers use sound and/or music to help cope with completion of mundane tasks and the combined social hardships. Her research areas of interest are neurodivergent and music perception and cognition, learning, processing, behavior, and accessible music education. She has been advocating for neurodivergent and disabled musicians through a variety of platforms since 2020. She has a podcast, Breaking the Third Wall in Music, that invites disabled and/or neurodivergent musicians to discuss disability topics in the music scene. She has spoken on the Brave New Sound and marching arts education. She has also given talks at universities, conferences, and organizations about neurodivergence. Lastly, she is a bass clarinetist and an active performer in a variety of contemporary, classical, and popular musical ensembles.
Hi, I'm Tara Allen. I am the current guest host of the Able Voices podcast. Today, I am joined by Andrew Wang. Andrew Wang, he, him, received his undergraduate degree at the University of Miami in Coral Gables, Florida. He also has his master's in music education from Kent State University. Andrew works as the music education expert for hip hop in the 914, as well as the music education expert for hip hop and neurodivergence. Andrew has presented around the country from University of Miami to Howard University in DC and internationally through virtual presentations in Dublin and Germany. Andrew, or Mr. Hip Hop, brings the element of beatboxing to hip hop. Andrew believes good teaching happens when the student feels successful, and he currently got a new job at an amazing school district. And
Yes, I did.
I will let Andrew, kind of introduce himself and talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. Yes, so I guess I should just reveal that. I work at a district called Greenberg Graham Union Free School District, in which I'm teaching district-wide to kids that are having IEPs, which, if people want to know, that means an individualized education plan. So every student that comes through this district has one, and it's kind of fun that, like, my research that I've done on hip hop and neurodivergence, I'm actually applying in my actual teaching. So it's kind of cool to see both sides of the both perspectives, you could say, and truly enjoying it. And yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah. So, Andrew, my first question for you is I'd like to start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about your story as an artist. How did you start as an artist and how did you get where you are today?
very good question. Well, I always tell everyone this phrase. I used to learn how to whistle before I could talk. So, like, music just felt like very natural to me. I grew up listening to my siblings' music, which, if you're a millennial, which is yes, people born in the 1990s, not 1900s, then I was a big fan of, like, the boy band era, particularly NSYNC. Actually, growing up in the living room, that was the first ever music video I saw was "Bye Bye Bye" by NSYNC, and I learned how to copy the choreography, and it just seemed like, oh my God, these guys are up on stage or in a video having so much fun. I want to do that. It was actually my first ever concert, and I was just very interested in seeing, like, the singing and the harmonies. And then I noticed in this particular song from the album No Strings Attached, yes, that is correct. that it was called pop. And at the end, I heard this thing where Justin Timberlake goes like, and I was like, what is that? So took that away for a little bit. Fast forward, I was at camp, sleep-like camp at 8 years old, and I saw a counselor doing the exact same thing that I saw in that song. And I was like, what is it? What is it you're doing? And he said, it's something called beatboxing. And I was like, oh, wow, you can actually make sounds with your mouth that aren't singing and like make it sound like a drum. That's awesome. So I just tried to develop that skill. And mind you, I was a very shy kid at the time. So using beatboxing was my way of expression, my way of opening up. And so turns out that I was able to figure it out kind of quickly. And it was my way of working through some of my phonics and pronunciation and stuff. And that was the first step of my hip hop journey. So I recently discovered that it's not that I discovered hip hop, but maybe hip hop discovered me. So, because funny enough, in sixth grade, I was in a talent show where I did this song, Where's the Love? And besides, funny enough, Justin Timberlake doing the singing of that song, there was a rap by, I believe, Will I Am and Taboo. And I actually did that for the talent show in sixth grade. And it was just a great experience having the opportunity to do that. It was also like one of the first times people got to see me for who I was and just see my personality come through. So now I'm about, so I guess sixth grade. So let's say like a couple of years later, I had a friend that had this hardware machine that was called, well, Machine. And it was like a beat making program you can use with your fingers. And I was like, wait a minute. You're saying the beats that I've been making in my mouth, I can make into pads and separate it to make beats of my own beats? It's like an Inception type thing. And it was really cool to see that. And all right, so I learned some of that production stuff. Okay, cool. Also, I forgot to mention during the bar mitzvah time, I always like tried to do the breaking. I'm not good at it. I could get maybe half a headstand on a good day. But that was like a big thing also for me, was like people seeing me like shine dancing in a way. So now I go to college. I go to college for vocal jazz and music education. Funny story, I almost didn't go into music education at all. Big time in New York is Broadway and theater. So I almost went to school for musical theater until I realized that my teachers and people that have been very supportive of my career, they all were teachers. And I thought to myself, I want to work with kids that were sort of like me, which is funny enough what I'm doing now, as a music teacher. So I went to school for music education, but not just that, I was also very interested in vocal jazz. And I think it's because beatboxing felt so improvisational and freestyle is improvisational. I did that with my friends growing up in high school. And it felt like scat singing was improvisational. So it just all felt connected. So I get my degree there. And then started working somewhere before COVID happened. Yeah, we all know what COVID was. And then I got my degree at Kent State during COVID. And it allowed me to start working in 914 Westchester. And that's where I currently am today. I'm at a school in 914. So that's why I still do this 914 hip hop work, which I guess I could explain a little bit. When I was working in a prior district in Yonkers, I had a push-in teacher. I'll give his name out, Harold McCoy. And he told me, like, do you like hip hop? Because this was during the 50th, and I was showing the Grammy presentation. I was like, I like hip hop. It's like, do you know DMX, Mary J. Blige, and the Locks are? I'm like, yeah. It's like, do you know Bill Blass is? I'm like, wait, who? So there's an entire book called Yonkers Lost City of Hip Hop by Jerome Enders, and they did a workshop series through education on hip hop. And it was very cool. And then when the 50th ended, I was like, I don't want this to end. This is so much fun. So how do I bring it to keep things going alive? It's through education. So at first it was just education of the history of Yonkers, which became the history of Westchester. And then the guy who wrote the Yonkers Lost City book working on the paperback, and there's an electronic version of a book called Making of a Scribe, which is kind of cool. It's his journey to write Yonkers Lost City of Hip Hop. So his schooling. So I was a part of that, helping out with some curriculum. And then right before I was going to take another leave replacement, I actually fractured my kneecap, and I'll explain how that all makes sense. So I couldn't do a lot for a while. And then I thought to myself, like, wait a minute. So I may have a physical injury. And speaking of, injuries, or I don't even like the word to use deficit, but like I was thinking to myself, wait a minute. So hip hop has 5 elements: DJing, MCing, breaking, graffiti, and knowledge. And for someone neurodivergent, there's so many sensory sensitivities like visual, auditory, tactile, kinesthetic. Has anyone done that with hip hop? If there's that many elements that already include ways to utilize that with those sensories, and it turns out I looked on Google, there was nothing. So I started doing a little research, and I'll give a shout out. There's a brilliant educator has written books on autism and music named Alice Hamill, and she told me about the Berkeley Able Conference, funny enough. And she was saying, like, you should apply. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm a little worried to show off that much of myself. And I masked myself for years, by the way. And for those who don't know what that means, it means I kind of hid away myself from opening up about my neurodivergence. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll apply. She thinks that I have a good chance. And I was like, oh, wow, I got in. And I was like, all right, let's just see. Maybe I'll just throw my name in a couple other conferences and whatnot. And I was getting accepted all these things. I was like, oh, wow. All right, so now I really got to figure out how I'm going to use this in a presentation work. And I was able to come up with things that utilize hip hop with neurodivergence, coming up with different, even rappers that have overcome through neurodivergence. And it was just really cool to see the amount of appreciation I got for it. See, what I love about the hip hop was everyone just thinks it's rap music, but there's a culture to it when I was saying those elements. And that culture has its own saying: peace, love, unity, and having fun. Now, wouldn't it be great if we just all were in a society like that, where we all came together and just had those things in mind, working together? Which actually allowed me to introduce myself to another person I knew. He has a whole book called Hip Hop Could Save America. And it made me realize how hip hop could be utilized in things other than just music. And that's actually how I got into working in urban education. Was a guy named Chris Endon wrote a book for white folks who teach in the hood. And it gave me an understanding of community and belonging, and made me feel less of I'm teaching to you, I'm teaching for you, I'm teaching with you. You're learning and I'm learning along with you. So yeah, I guess that's how I developed my artistry, and it's gotten me to where I am today.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. You talked about it a little bit, as you were discussing this, but I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your experiences as a neurodivergent person and artist.
hmm So I see it as, by the way, neurodivergence is not a deficit, it could be an advantage. But actually, and that's another thing I love about this school, is that they may not have succeeded in the districts that they were in prior. And it's not a dumping ground, and it's a new opportunity to show what you really have to possess and express, especially in music. They haven't had music here in 5 years. So to see that I'm actually bringing something to help them express themselves is just unbelievable. And that's how I feel about my neurodivergent journey. I started off with an IEP in elementary school. And the only reason I switched from an IEP to a 504 was because of the amount of effort I put in academically. So, and believe me, I think I even put myself harder than my parents had me to. And I think that's the big thing about this neurodivergence, the idea of persevering, the idea of pushing through the barriers that people think you can't do this, you can't do that, or you don't have the ability to. This is why I hate the word disability. It makes it seem like everything's a negative connotation when there could be a way of enhancing yourself. And for me, like, neurodivergence allowed me to find something very particular that I have a passion for, which is music. And it's something that I've always just like felt gravitated to me. I feel that it really, I could just feel the music in my body when I was listening to it. So much to the point sometimes where it's like, I'd feel it so much that my parents would be like, all right, Andrew, just relax. So I'm like, no, I'm just like embracing what I'm hearing, and that's why I also used to be the kid that like would tap on their desk all the time, sort of thing, because I just felt like innate sense of, I just found myself through music. And that's what I believe people don't understand is that neurodivergent people find that one particular thing, that aspect, and that could take them to anywhere they want to be. I even, when I'm teaching my class, have a pledge that I use from a hip hop song called I Can by Nas, but I changed it to We Can. And the thing I say is, we know we can be where we want to be. If we work hard at it, we'll be where we want to be. So that's how I've been going through my neurodivergent journey. That's how I have tried to beat the odds of those who said that you can't do this or you'll never make it into education, because we all have those people that did it. And not only is it a chance to prove them wrong, but it's a chance to prove how much I've overcome and the stronger I've become through, some of the tougher moments. So, not sure if that answered everything. If there's any others.
I feel like it did. And I mean I definitely personally relate on my own aspects as an autistic and neurodivergent music
Mm-hmm.
educator. There's always these instances in especially music education as we're training that, we're told that it's supposed to be this specific way, but then the specific way doesn't fit for us, but it also doesn't fit for our students. So is
Right,
it really the right way?
right. And, it's kind of like, well, it goes back to like improvising. Is there a right way to play each
Mhm.
note? No. It's just a way that you think
Mhm.
feels right,
Mhm.
you know? So, yeah. And another reason it's funny that you bring that up, just meaning like the students and other people.
Mhm.
I've noticed that through this work, it's not just impacted the neurodivergent community.
Mhm.
I'm also impacting those of low socioeconomic
Mhm.
group. I feel like this is like one of the first times I feel, which is kind of crazy to me, that music educators and hip hop practitioners don't know one another.
Mhm.
So I've had opportunities to actually bring them together and have them like, I had a friend at Texas State who's a music educator and a friend who was a hip hop practitioner. They came together for a session for freshmen talking about how to use hip hop within the classroom. So like, we just need more of this unity
Mhm.
stuff to happen. It's also a way to advocate for those that are adults that are neurodivergent teachers,
Mhm.
because we always have these acts and things for students. And what about if a teacher's neurodivergent? What kind of access is there for them?
Mhm.
We talk about the Every Student Succeeds Act, but what about, why isn't there an Every Teacher Succeeds Act in a sense,
Mhm. Yeah.
Just something I've always
Yeah, no.
was curious about.
Believe me, I agree. Like every instance, I agree. We are the very people that are teaching students, and also we are providing an opportunity for students as educators to engage with people that look like them or think like them or might be similar to them. So it's like, why would we want to prohibit such opportunities for our students to feel comfortable with their identity, with an adult that feels comfortable with their identity, by not making
Right.
training programs accessible for our music teachers?
Yeah, there really has to be like more focus on that
Mhm.
because I mean, not only are they teaching us too, but like we shouldn't feel, if students are being able to open and be expressive,
Mhm.
why can't the adult? Why is that
Mhm.
an issue if an
Mhm.
adult is? And thinking that it's going to send a bad message. I don't know. I've heard these things so many times, and it makes me, well, okay. So let's go back to hip hop with that. The understanding that, like, kids coming into the cipher, into the circle to share their thoughts, like, why can't we do that as adults? We talk about restorative practice circles. Actually, funny enough, we're having a PD tomorrow, and we do like circle groups, uh, which is fine. I love doing it with staff members, and I would love to do it with the kids as well, like staff and kids, or the kids watching the staff doing it. So they could see that there's just enough vulnerabilities for a student as there is an adult,
100%. Moving on to our next question. I know that we talked about this a little bit earlier in your introduction and also your self-introduction, but additionally, I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about how you studied the arts and how do you continue to learn today through the arts?
That's a great question. Well, I studied the arts, obviously, in college and such, and through different other aspects. And then I guess let's go back to, so I'm very much a visual learner, even though auditory, I do have this thing called perfect pitch, blessing and a curse. But what's my thing with music was, it's just, I felt music was so easy to obtain the language. Actually, learning how to read lyrics quickly allowed me to absorb other languages. So, like, I am pretty close to fluent in Spanish in that sense. And obviously, I took private lessons growing up with multiple teachers for multiple instruments. And how I did it was just through repeating, repetition, rote teaching, which I do with my students. And I guess I just like kept myself structured in a sense. Or if I didn't growing up, my parents had me be structured in terms of things to get involved in outside of just being in school. So I was always like either taking lessons, or I played with a band in high school, or nowadays what I do is I'm very time oriented. I use the Pomodoro technique when it comes to getting assignments or tasks done. There's an app I use, Focus to Do. This is like the way I keep myself organized, because one of the other things I didn't mention, besides neurodivergent and being the level 1 of the spectrum and stuff, I have executive functioning issues, which if people don't know is sometimes your organization. And yet I try to channel the way I'm able to organize music, kind of like the way music's structured and formed, to think, how do I structure myself? So I kind of utilize the strengths I have in music to enhance the things that I've had difficulties with outside of music. And then, so I still go to different workshops, different presentations. Recently, I've been doing a lot of the webinar stuff. In fact, I guess I could say, because we're only 2 days away, very excited for the NAFME Virtual Symposium. That's the first ever one. So, like, to see, and that's the beauty of, I don't know why, like, the work that I did, I feel like it opened up people to actually be able to present on this. Because, believe it or not, I guess I forgot to mention that the Secretary of Education for the country with Joe Biden was the keynote speaker at the NAFME Eastern Conference. And he spoke about my article on hip hop and neurodivergence. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And like, okay, this is real. Because I make this joke that, yeah, people have written articles, cool. But now it's like, it has some connection. And it's so cool. So I definitely do a lot of the webinar stuff. I did a little bit of the Berkeley Able, funny enough, the fall session stuff. So I just try to find I guess I'm trying to stay more particular to the specific students that I teach. In the past, I would go to like every Kodai, but I do have students that are nonverbal. In fact, that would be, I don't know if that is in the symposium, a really cool topic to understand the nonverbal community. In fact, one of the therapists here is considering giving me one of the AC devices just to get an understanding of how it works. And I think that should be utilized with anyone that works with students that could have special needs. So yeah, going through webinars, conferences, and just being involved in different forums and groups, whether on social media or I would say in person, but that's been a little tricky. Just finding the right people, right networks, and just keep reading. I know I had wrote his book recently, came out. I also know the Oxford Handbook for Special Music Education Therapy just came out a couple days ago. Very excited to get my hands on that. So the resources are out there. In fact, I feel this is like the most I've seen resources for this particular topic that I've seen in a while. Because even when I was in college, they had a special education course they were going to do with music. I was the only one that signed up, so they didn't have the class. So to see that there's more appreciation for it and more resources out there for it is just, it's very cool to see. So that's how I get myself involved with it.
So you are clearly very active in the industry. Can you please tell us a little bit about your current work, which you've touched about a little bit, but maybe going a little bit deeper?
In terms of the education work?
It could be any. It could be yourself as an educator, the work that you're doing now with neurodivergence in hip hop. Like,
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. Like what are you asking? Sorry, I guess I'm trying to.
it's
Are you
okay.
asking
So
me?
it's like
Are you
take
asking me what I'm currently doing with
yeah,
it?
like
Or
what kind of work are you doing now? Are you creating papers? Are you going to conferences to present?
yeah, no, that's a good question. I've been doing a lot of virtual college talks. I just did one recently for USC. I'm getting involved in other organizations like APME New York. I'm also, writing out some new lesson ideas based on the current population I work with. Uh, in fact, funny enough, a lot of them are beatboxers.
Mhm.
A lot of the students here. And with the nonverbal, I've been able to utilize it. And then I feel like that actually helped their phonics. I think that's one of the blessings I've had at this job is the idea that once I hear a kid nonverbally, I shouldn't use the word nonverbal. I want to get the
Oh,
correct
non-speaking.
term. Thank you. See, I want to be appropriate about that. They spoke. And not only spoke, they would sing the songs
Mhm.
that I repeated. That's when I know the work had meaning to it.
Mhm.
When I know that there are kids that are writing out their own verse of a rap, but may have trouble reading, it's showing that they do care about their education. They do engage with it.
Mhm.
We just have to do it in a way that connects with them.
Mhm.
So, in terms of what else I'm doing with this work, the big thing that I'm trying to work on, and it might take some time, is a memoir.
Mhm.
I feel that there have been memoirs of people overcoming struggles. I've never felt like I've seen one of someone that overcame their special needs through something that could be engaged by multiple people through hip hop. So, like, to actually have a memoir to kind of solidify that and then do a book talk, I mean, like, those are the things that I'm looking to do after this time. Now that the recognition is there, and currently also it's Hip Hop Appreciation Month. So I've been in global talks through Zoom with people from Poland, UK, Germany. And it's so cool that they all connect to some, like they could rap a verse and then not even speak the same language as someone else. Or what's cool about beatboxing is you don't even have to speak it is its own language in a sense. Uh, so that's where I'm currently am at. I'm excited to see how I can grow professionally through these opportunities, but and also just grow in my teaching where I am now. What's cool about doing this district wide is I have a variety of students, variety of cognition levels. So it's cool to see how I can like make adaptations and modifications based on the needs of the students.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Thanks for sharing. So, Andrew, you talked about a few times about beatboxing and how you were kind of exploring what that means, hearing it in your mouth, like feeling it in your mouth, but then also eventually turning into a soundboard. I'm very curious to hear a demonstration of what some of this beatboxing sounds like.
Yeah, totally down. You ready?
Yeah.
Woo. Here we go. I'm going to start old school and then maybe bring it up to the new one. I keep my peace when I'm with you. I love it, and I love it. I keep my peace when I'm with you. I love it, but I love. Told me to walk this way.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Next, can you tell our audience where they can follow your work online?
Yes, absolutely. You can follow me at Mr. Wang 2692. That's Mister Wang 2692 on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as Andrew Wang. I run I think it's getting up there. It's pretty popular Facebook group called Hip Hop from the 914, which is based on a book by a guy named E.J. Woodson. Wanted to make sure to give him credit. Also, I want to give credit to Jose Valentino, who also helped with collaborating on these projects and being co-author. He does a million things. So you can find him literally just by looking up his name, and then he has a whole website. And then I guess you can find, if you look up hip hop and neurodivergence on Google, you'll find the works I've done. I would say I have a popple, but that might be hard to write in the exact address of that. So I will maybe forgive that for this time. And yeah, I'm in New York for the most part. So if you're interested or anyone interested, virtually speaking, I'm available. So yeah.
Spectacular. Lastly, what advice would you give to a young neurodivergent musician?
I would just say to keep going. The idea that like there's gonna be pitfalls, and there have been in my life, believe me. And yet, the one thing I've never done is give up. I never give up on any instrument. I never gave up on getting my degrees. I never gave up on reaching for my goals, no matter how long or how hard it could be to get. It's just little steps to get to where you need to go. So, I mean, it's kind of like what I do with my pledge. And I'll say it one more time again. We know we can be where we want to be. If we work hard at it, we'll be where we want to be. And that's literally my mantra in a sense to help me. And I think that's what every young person needs. And that's why I do it for them. And believe it or not, it's shown a lot of positive effects. And, just if you put in the hard work and effort, everything's there for you. You can't wait for anything. You got to be the one to go out and get it.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice for young neurodivergent people who might feel like they're like, this is a bit much. I have a very similar thing of like, it feels much now, but if you keep working at it, you'll get there. It just takes
Right.
some time. Takes a lot of
That's why
time.
I've gotten rid of some words in my vocabulary, like but I don't use anymore.
Mhm.
It's a negation. And if someone says like, I want to do this, but I'm not there, I'll say yet. You're
Mhm.
not there yet.
Mhm.
There's still time. There's still opportunities. Don't let one failure be the dichotomy or the
Mhm.
whole sense of you, you know? There's a book I read that literally was about that, like embracing failure in a
Mhm.
sense. And it's really true that art, I mean, wow, I'm about to quote a Kelly Clarkson song. See, a millennial. What doesn't kill you gets you stronger.
Oh, what a bop.
Oh, great. It was great. Everyone like says, "Oh, the Kelly Clarkson show." I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so old. I remember her when she first auditioned for
Oh,
American
I
Idol."
know, it's wild.
Actually, speaking of that show, you know that they showed neurodivergence. I should have given a shout out to
Mhm.
Spin the Spectrum for
Mhm.
doing DJing with
Mhm.
hip hop, and that actually was on the Kelly Clarkson show. So, ironically, that was a great
It
way of
fit. It
adding
fits.
that in. Exactly.
Well, Andrew, it was a pleasure talking with you today, and I'm sure it was equally as a pleasure for the listeners to listen to your story and your experiences and your work. And thank you to the listeners for listening today to the Able Voices podcast, and to next time.
All right, sounds good. Peace.
Able Voices is a production of the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education, led by me, Dr. Rhoda Bernard, the founding managing director. It is produced by Daniel Martinez del Campo. The intro music is by Kai Levin, and our closing song is by Sebastian Batista. Kai and Sebastian are students in the arts education programs at the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education. If you would like to learn more about our work, find us online at berkeley.edu/BIAAE or email us at BIAAE@berkeley, that's LEE.edu.